and today I am back with another Top 5 Wednesday video. Top 5 Wednesday is now hosted by Sam from the channel Thoughts on Tomes. I will leave both her channel and a link to the Goodreads page in the description box below if you'd like to check either of those ones out. Today's topic is books you joined before blank. So basically this topic is asking you to think back about the books that you used to read before you joined Booktube, Twitter, Bookstagram, blogging, Goodreads, all of those sort of social media sites. I actually decided to kind of limit myself with this topic because obviously I read quite extensively when I was a kid, and a lot of books such as The Hunger Games, Harry Potter, Divergent, Maze Runner, a lot of those I sort of, had read before Booktube and before I got onto it, but I decided to sort of stick away from those more popular books and kind of focus on books that I read. Mainly they were cover buys, sort of in a way, so these are books that I actually went to the bookstore, I saw their covers, I read their blurbs, and then I picked them up and I didn't know about them any other way apart from one book which I read because of a movie that came out. So the first book I'm going to talk about is the one that I bought because of the movie that was coming out, and that is The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. Obviously this book is technically 7 books, but we're just going to pretend that it's one for the purposes of this video. So The Chronicles of Narnia are 7 separate stories that each take place in the fictional realm of Narnia. Each story focuses on a different group of characters in a different situation. So we've got the first book focusing on the... is that a bookmark? No, it was not a bookmark. The first book focuses on the creation of Narnia, and then we move on to the Pevensey children with their stories. We meet their cousin who then has his own story, and all the way up into the very last book. So this is one of my absolute favorite books growing up. I bought it right before the first film came out, Lion, Witch and the Wardrobe, in 2005, so I was only 10 when that movie came out. And I remember my dad sort of said to me, he's like, well, have you read the books? And I went, I didn't know books were a thing. I did not know that they were based on books. So he bought me this massive, bind up of all of them, which has the worst cover, by the way. I mean, this cover is awful, and I really need to get myself a new version of the Chronicles of Narnia books. Like, I really do, because this cover is awful. But I ended up reading them and I absolutely fell in love with them, and these are books that I definitely came across before I joined Booktube, considering I was 10 when I read this for the first time and I was like 20 or something when I started my Booktube channel. Next up I have the Wicked Lovely series by Melissa Marr. Yeah, I was right, Melissa Marr. I get confused between Melissa Marr and Marissa Meyer, like so confused. So this book follows a girl named Aisling who has lived her whole life with her grandmother following 3 simple rules. Never stare at invisible fairies, never speak to invisible fairies, and never ever attract their attention. Of course, Aisling manages to do all 3 because that's how you get an awesome plot in books, and she is then drawn into the world of fairy and into their politics and into everything that goes on there. She's drawn into a bit of a romance, but she also has romance going on elsewhere, and she meets all these awesome characters, and it's a lot of fun. And this is one of the books that I read while I was in my massive fairy kick when I was in high school. Like, I went through this massive fairy kick while I was in high school. It was actually ridiculous. I was reading so many fairy books, but it's also kind of a darker book. Like, I remember, I'm pretty sure it's in this one, but at some point I remember reading about, like, the invisible fairies are not nice fairies. I'm pretty sure at one point one fairy like raped a human just because they could, because the human couldn't see them, which is awful and horrible. But I remember that happening, but for some reason this series really stuck with me, and it's one of my favorite series that I found out before I joined Booktube. And even after I joined Booktube, I really don't see many people talking about them, so I feel like they're one of these books that came out way before Booktube was even a thing, so it's not really something that people talk about, but people should talk about it because it's an awesome book and an even better series. Next up I want to talk about yet another fairy book, and that is Wings by April and Pike. This book follows a girl named Laurel who one day she wakes up and discovers that she has something that looks suspiciously like wings growing out of her back. She finds out that it is actually a petal, and then she is drawn into this world of finding out that she is a fairy and that something is coming for Avalon that she needs to help stop. It is such a simple book. Like, honestly, it's one of the simplest books that I have read. I read it when I was in high school. It is a 4-part series and it is so amazing. But this is another one of those series that I really don't see talked about much at all on Booktube. I think it's one of the series that was sort of popular before Booktube really became a thing, so I never really see it. And because I was never on Goodreads or Twitter or anything like that when I was younger, I never sort of saw it there either. So this is definitely a series that I came across way before I ever fell into Booktube, and I highly, highly, highly recommend that you pick it up as well. In fact, I highly recommend all these series because honestly, it's just so good. Next up, I have The Northern Lights by Philip Pullman. This is the first book in the His Dark Materials series, and yes, it was turned into a movie called The Golden Compass, which I actually kind of forgot about, but I ended up reading the books did I read the books before I saw the film? Actually, no, I watched the movie first and then I read the books because I remember my friend had read the books before she saw the movie and we saw the film together. And she sort of went, look, Jenna, they changed so many things. They missed out a whole bunch of stuff from the ending. And as soon as I heard that, I went, right, I need to read this series. So I did and I loved it. Although I have to say, because I would have been very early high school when I read them, they have a very heavy plot, I guess, is possibly one of the best ways to describe it, and kind of a confusing one. I remember reading the last book in this trilogy and going, I don't understand what's happening. And even now, all these years later, I still don't really understand how the series wrapped up. This is one of those series that I think I need to read again now that I'm much older, especially because the next book in this series is coming out and I really want to read that. So I am planning on rereading these books very soon, mainly because I just don't understand how it all wrapped up. But despite that, I still absolutely loved and adored it, and I never came across it on Booktube because I wasn't on Booktube in high school. So this is definitely, again, another one of those books that I came across before joining Booktube. Last but not least, we have a book all the way back from primary school, and that is The Book of Lies by James Maloney. The Book of Lies follows a boy named Marcel who wakes up in an orphanage and discovers that he cannot remember anything except for his name, and even that doesn't quite seem right to him. He sets out to figure out who he really is and why he has this name and why he was left in this orphanage. And altogether, it just is this really lovely family tale, lots of friends. It's such a family-friendly tale as well because pretty much anyone can read this book. And it has, you know, fun, adventure, dragons, books that lie and tell you when you're lying, and it's just all around a really fun little series. It did turn out to be a series. There are actually 3 books in the series, which I didn't know about for like the longest time, and then I read the 3rd book eventually and just went, wow, I love this so much. So yeah, I adored this series. Like I said, it came out in primary school and I was definitely not on YouTube in primary school, so Booktube wasn't even a thing back then. So I found this one by myself in a store, probably begged mum to buy it for me. She did. I read it. I loved it. Odds are I probably borrowed books 2 and 3. In fact, I definitely know that I borrowed book 3 from the library because I don't own it, which sucks, and I would really like to own it at some point. But yeah, you know how sometimes you can just tell with books like that? So I absolutely adored this series. It was such a fun children's middle grade series. It's one that I would love to reread. Sometimes all you want to do is you want to reread an easy middle grade novel, and this is one that I would definitely reread 100 times over. So there you go. Those are the 5 books that I read before I joined Booktube. Let me know what books you used to love before you joined Booktube or Goodreads or Bookstagram or whatever sort of social media site you're on right now. I would love to know. If you like this video, just be sure to give it a huge thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss a thing. Stay random. Bye.